Don't take this the wrong way, but when you're talking about making government more efficient, it kind of sounds like a conservative political viewpoint.
I can absolutely see that. That makes sense. There's no good way to go about it. There's
Mm.
no reason for them to be here. Obviously, Chicago is not a place that needs that. Um, we're the safest we've statistically been in 30 years. There's no reason. And
So,
it just makes people feel unsafe.
got it. So you don't think that crime is a problem in Chicago? I'm from Los Angeles, so I'm visiting here. So maybe you can tell me a little more.
I mean, as long as you go to the places that you know you're going to be accepted and that I know what I look like. I know what my vibe is. I'm not going to go to places that are not my vibe and where I'm not welcome. Um, there's yes, crime that happens in every city. However, there's not really a reason to vilify Chicago for it. Per capita, Chicago is not actually as violent of a city as people think it is.
So, do you think that there should be more law enforcement, or do you think that there's sufficient law enforcement, or do you think we need less here in Chicago because crime's not that big an issue?
I don't really have a good way to answer that just because I don't really have the numbers of it. Um, but while Chicago has always been a city that does have violence in it, it is also one of the biggest cities in America. So it's not necessarily that we need more or less police force. I think there's just better ways to allocate funding and make sure that people genuinely feel safe when they see a police officer come towards them by giving them training they need and making sure that the funding that they're being given is actually put into places that matter and make sense and actually help people.
So, with the crime that's happening, let's just say the South Side, for example, what do you think should happen in those areas to make crime lower for the people who live there?
Resources, resources. I mean, crime has pretty much always been the uh, result of need, one way or another. While obviously there's been plenty of times that crime is a thing that does become organizational and does become bigger than it is and all that kind of stuff, at the very root of it, there's always a need for something. So if resources can be allocated, people can get the things that they need. People are able to afford rent every month and are able to feel safe in their homes and are able to feel safe around where they are. Then from there, there's a very good and real chance that crime would be able to improve.
So, since that's not happening at the moment, do you feel like the mayor is failing the people?
I I mean there's always systems that will fail, but I am not familiar enough with the mayor's dealings at the moment. Other than he has a shitload of things on his plate, especially with everything that's happening right now. Uh, but there's also just a lot of other systems within Chicago that and the nation, honestly,
Yeah.
that make the world a little harder to live in.
So I don't know if you saw the pictures, but the National Guard is out in D.C. We were there last week watching them. They're just walking around, etc., keeping the peace. I guess a show of force. I don't know what you call it, but if that were to happen, let's say there was National Guardsmen, I don't know, in this park, and then things did get settled down. Do you think that that may be an indication that more regular law enforcement could be a good thing in an area that's crime ridden?
I I don't know if that would really having National Guard in a place that's peaceful baseline in this park, there's really no reason for them to be here.
Let's say, for instance, like a more crime ridden area. I guess you could say, like, I don't know, the South Side or so.
Okay. I feel like if it even calmed something down, I don't think it would, honestly. People are willing to fight for their right to live their lives happily. They I don't think violence should ever be incited. However, I am not a large majority of people. So it's more just they need to know that them being here in a force does not show anyone that they are like there's not a good way for them showing force to be able to help anybody.
Most of the crime, I was going through statistics, it's mostly black on black crimes in neighborhoods that are predominantly black. What could be done about that, especially in Chicago, to make that better from, so many people dying?
What organization?
Organization?
Yeah.
No, we're not an organization.
Um, there's just I crime is crime. Yes, there's always statistics. Yes, there's always going to be more policing on people of color. There's always going to be more policing on marginalized groups. And they're always going to be more reported because there's more policing. There's not really a good way to say that black on black crime is actually the most present. There's always going to be crime in every community.
I was specifically referring to, let's say, the South Side, where there's a lot of most of the crime committed is black on black. It's not like blacks on whites or a racial thing. It's just like the community and whatever situation they have going on there. That's what I was referring to specifically. Like, how do you help that those people living there in that community? What do you do?
Once again, resources, resources,
What,
resources, resources,
and then
resources.
that's resources. Like, what does that mean?
Social resources such as places for people to go when they don't have a home, places for people to go when they are out of money, places for people to go when they need just help living their lives. There's a lot of systems in the US that make it very hard for people to live their lives. And while there are many, many, many social reform organizations, they just don't have the funding that they need to actually be able to help people.
So you think there's sufficient organizations now? There's just not enough funding for those organizations that are operating in those areas, or
I would say so. Yeah.
yeah,
Obviously there's always another little portion of it that needs to be helped, but at the same time it's more just they do need the funding that they are not really given by the state because it's easier for the people in power to stay in power if the people that are not in power don't have the resources to become powerful.
got it. So correct me if I'm wrong. The mayor is a Democratic mayor, and the city council is a Democratic city council. So wouldn't they? Shouldn't they help them in their platform? Isn't aren't they trying to get more money to organizations? And why aren't they do that if they say they're supposed to do it?
I I am a much more socialist person than a Democrat is. Um, there is a big difference between socialism and Democrat views. I, um, while they do help more than other sides of that political spectrum, there's always money to be allocated. There's always groups that are going to want more allocated like money to them that are in power. Unfortunately, it's probably mostly a power structure thing.
Got it. So it's a power structure. Even though they're Democrats, they're still not doing what should be done in your estimation. What would you do?
I would try to give money to the places that I feel need it the most. Money is the
Like the South Side area you're talking about, or the parents?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then is that like in the form of just direct payments to the people, or like?
I mean, not necessarily, but it's like government is government. We do need some government, obviously, to be able to like be a society and be able to help each other. Um, but at the same time, systemic things happen. So I do want to, if I was in power of a sort, I would try to do it the right way. I would try to go through the channels that we already have. I would try to make channels that are legal, constitutional, etc. And I would try to make sure that funding goes where it's actually needed versus to more policing or like I don't know,
So like,
trying to get
would you
teachers
say like kind of like raise the taxes here to have more funding for those programs?
or even just reallocating the funds that we already have. I mean, Chicago already has like even downtown Chicago, I believe, has like a 10 to 10.5% tax rate. Um, there's that's so much money. Like I know obviously I don't know the budgets of Chicago. I really don't. But at the same time, like there has to be better ways to reallocate it.
Where would you take money from to reallocate that money? So there's like essential services. You know, you have firefighters, police officers, you have libraries, you have education, you have
Mhm.
public works, etc.
I mean, I would definitely give more to public education, more to firefighters and um, medical care, et cetera, trying to
Does that
allocate
include police, or it's
resources.
just more specifically firefighters?
It would probably be defunding some of the police force just because there seems to be a lot of extra funds that they do a lot of relatively unnecessary things with. Um, we don't need horses in Chicago anymore. We don't need just lots of like there's a lot of things that I think they do traditionally, and there's just a lot of other like extra gear and wild allocating of funds that does not seem necessary to me.
Got it. So you're for a more efficient government, like
Hmm.
that runs more efficiently, which is interesting because if you're a socialist or I guess self-proclaimed, that's kind of the antithesis of what typical socialists want, right?
I mean, it's hard to be a socialist in a capitalist government. Um, I can't change the entirety of how our economy works, obviously.
Yeah,
So it's more just trying to do what I can with the tools that I have.
yeah. And don't take this the wrong way. I'm registered independent. I'm not Democrat or Republican. But when you're talking about making government more efficiency, it kind of sounds like a conservative political viewpoint of cutting out the waste and all these bloated budgets and all these extra departments we don't need.
I can absolutely see that. That makes sense. I mean, plenty of people have said the same thing. It's more just that the places that I would allocate funds to, the places that I would try to make more efficient, is that I they would be more geared towards social programs. They would be more helping the people versus the ones in power.